A brief reflection on today's discussion theme. As you know, in a world that's increasingly facing climate change issues, social inequality, mental health crisis, I guess many of us have experiences with our mental health and spiritual disconnection, social isolation, alienation, and building resilience is more important than ever. I think reflecting and contemplating on what resilience means to each of us becomes really important in this day and age. So today we'll explore this subject in a warm gathering in the presence of His Eminence Rinpoche, Girl Bokhamber Rinpoche, Anila Tenzing Palmo, Professor Robert Stiles, and Sonam Yepum. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to once again welcome Rinpoche and all the panelists to this August gathering. Thank you so much for your time. So without further ado, I will hand over the floor to Rinpoche maybe to start with your initial thoughts.
I just came back from Uluru and met a lot of indigenous people, and the one thing they said very interesting is whenever you meet somebody new, you lose a part of yourself, but you also gain something, which I thought was very profound, which means that every time, which can in a way, another way mean that every time you meet someone and learn something new, you lose some of your misconceptions and learn some new wisdom. So that's why I'm very honored to be here among all the panelists. And spirituality and inner resilience. Because from my understanding, I think the spirituality itself talks about development of mind. And just before we came here, we were talking about, what is the kind of the different approach between the modern world and our Himalayan kind of the spiritual way of thinking is that modern world seems to, emphasize on creating a perfect external environment, which means that in order for me to be happy, I must have a very wonderful parent. My parent must also love me all the time, 24/7. If they get angry with me and scold me, then I'm going to, not be happy. And then my teachers must also be loving to me. Sun must also shine all the time. If there's a winter, then I'm depressed. Then the traffic must there's no traffic jam. Otherwise, I'll have a road rage. It's not because of, me unable to control my anger, have a patience, but it was the traffic jam. There's so many kind of, kind of, in a way, looking for external solutions. But from the Himalayan point of view, we have a saying that you cannot cover the entire country with the leather, saying that my feet is getting pricked by a thorn. Just wear a shoe, and it's like you have covered the entire mountain with the, and you will not get pricked by a thorn. So I think in the spirituality, it's about developing that inner resilience. Whatever you do, for example, in the Himalayan culture or tradition, we do a lot of prostration. So one of the reasons why we do prostration is so that we can kind of, contain our belief that we are greater than somebody, greater than other people, that we are more important than anybody else. And because if you have that kind of, a view, conflict will naturally arise. Because when you think you are greater, they will think they are greater than you, So then the country level, we impose our view on others. In the family-wise also we talk about, my wish, my happiness, my desire, rather than, for the family that is beneficial, family unity that is beneficial to all of us. So we lose connection. So spirituality, from my understanding, is about developing little bit of, ability to control your own anger, your own selfishness, your own jealousy, etc., right? If I'm not jealous, even you guys can be the most beautiful and most handsome, and I'll say, wow, I'll actually enjoy looking at you guys. Wow, what a beautiful girl here. What a handsome, good-looking man. And it's like a feast to my eye. But if I have a jealousy within me, the moment I see somebody better than me, I'll go back to my room, and then, I think I have to do 1 hour of another makeup, No, I'll have to do so many things just because somebody is, external condition is something that is, I can't take it. So that is why I think the spirituality naturally, I think, builds resilience. So that is the kind of my understanding of the theme.
If I may ask Dr. Rob, I know that you've mentioned things about psychological flexibility, how it can help us, navigate through life's complexity. If I could ask you to share some of your experiences in your research with psychological flexibility and how it aligns with day-to-day life, how it helps us become resilient in our lives.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I'm going to build on something that Rinpoche just said. It's, the traffic jam. And it made me think, how many of us treat life like it's a traffic jam? And we're in a road rage. It's like life's, relationships are jammed up, and things at school are jammed up, and my job is all jammed up, and my boss is jammed up, and it's and the other thing you pointed to was the quality of presence. Like we can put shoes on, which means that we can choose our quality of presence, and this is psychological flexibility. It's the freedom to choose to respond to what is happening and move forward in a way that's actually important to you and the things you care about, the ones you love, your environment. And it's actually not to get hooked by the traffic jam. So the traffic jam most of the time is actually happening in here, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah. Because two people can be standing in front of the same view, and someone will say, that's horrible, and someone will say, no, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, but the views aren't right, and what is there is the truth. So I think, to me, in relation to the theme, spirituality and resilience, and this relationship to psychological flexibility is to develop the freedom to not be hooked by your emotional responses and what you think about things, because it's not a Gregory Allen reality. We can't control our emotions, so we're free to feel them for all it is, and consciously act in a direction that's actually important to us, which is like putting shoes on. So it means that we've got to learn to see the world differently, I think. So perceiving beauty, even in the presence of tough times, and being able to respond with compassion and love.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I really appreciate where you're coming from in terms of changing the way we perceive the world, how it can change the way we, respond to challenges. And that's something that all of us need to take as part of our daily practice to be able to change our perception on things. Like you said, some of us could see something and somebody might find it ugly, whereas somebody might find it beautiful. So I guess it all depends on how we perceive things, so changing perception. I think that's really great. With that, if I may ask Anita, as a female practitioner, as a Buddhist nun as well, what are some of the things that you feel you experienced when you started your journey as a spiritual practitioner, as somebody seeking the path of truth?
Yeah, first of all, on behalf of Dr. Kung Fu Nuns and my colleagues here, I'd like to thank you for giving this great opportunity to be a part of this great panel discussion amongst a great scholar like His Eminence and doctor. And among you, as I said before, I'm not a good speaker at first place, but of course, just feel very honored to be a part of this discussion. So, as you said about the spirituality and inner resilience, as His Eminence Doctor said, how we perceive the things and all these things. From my perspective, to build our inner resilience, I think it's really, very important at this modern time, because, the time we live is very pressure, a lot of expectation and so more things. So, in order to build inner resilience, like as you said in one of the questions, like what sort of, whether meditation or prayers. So meditation is really will play a big role. For example, meditation means, I don't know how do we define meditation in our Western country, but to me personally, and of course as a Buddhist practitioner, meditation is to familiarize, to become familiarized with the reality, where we live in a world where we, as His Eminence said, we go with external, so many materialistic things, and we don't live with the reality. The reality is everything is impermanent, everything is changing, everything is from sunrise to sunset, how the weather change, from summer to winter, and how we are changing every day, we are growing, we are getting old. So if we know this, if we have this understanding that everything is changing, everything is not real, if we have that understanding, I think resilience will be sort of, automatically built. So when you have resilience, personal values and spiritual belief act as an inner compass, guiding decisions and action when life feels uncertain. They provide a sense of purpose, hope, resilience, helping individuals see challenges as opportunities for growth. If we have that, so we will, for example, during the COVID-19, I felt that, it was a kind of a taste, how whether we have an inner resilience or not. As a practitioner, me personally, during the COVID-19, I was very sick, to be honest, very sick for weeks. I couldn't sleep. It was a very difficult, and I know whole world suffered from pandemic, and so many people became crazy. They jumped from the roof. So many people died. So but because of having a little bit of understanding, having the practice, Buddha Dharma, the blessings of gurus, we navigate through. I navigate through personally. Everything is, of course, because we are not prepared. We always take everything is granted. Everything is, everything will be okay. Everything should be perfect. So when the such like pandemic and something happened, it's very shocking. So with that, I sort of it gives a time for us to reflect. Whether how we really go through. So if we have a sense of resilience, I think it's quite easy to face the difficulties and problems.
So, just as a follow-up, if I may, incorporating martial arts into your spiritual practice, how has that impacted your approach towards Dharma? And how has it made you more resilient or overcome challenges that are seemingly difficult for many of us?
True. Kung Fu is something, it's a martial art. It's a kind of a skill, and people never expect nuns to be, like wearing robes and kicking and sort of things. It's something very kind of unacceptable. People sort of have a mind of, nuns mean just sitting in the, in a temple, meditating, saying prayers. That's all. But of course, there was Kung Fu is one thing we now become as a well-known for as a Kung Fu nun. So that was because of our Guru, His Holiness has, how do you say, materialized. He said, he has given us the opportunity to learn Kung Fu. So we have our nuns many of our nuns are very expert. So Kung Fu is not something just an martial art. It is a martial art, but when we practice it, it really gives you inner strength, confidence. As a girl, as a woman practitioner, we have. In generally we all know women wherever in the whole world there is a little bit of girl, woman is a little bit put down, and not only put down, also a lot of risk and kind of wherever you go. Problems. So when we practice Kung Fu, it really build your inner strength, and of course the fitness that goes, without saying. When you physically feel very fit, and then you mentally also you become very strong. So I think our nuns, Kung Fu nuns, Drukpa nuns are now, really, very ready to do anything. For example, we can ride bicycles for like
3,000
thousands of kilometers.
3,000 kilometers.
Yeah, 4,000 kilometers.
4,000,
We
yes.
rode from Nepal, Kathmandu to Ladakh, across all the high passes, and also nuns are very good in whatever, very ready to do anything. So I think Kung Fu really play a big role to strengthen your mental health as well as physical fitness.
Thank you, Anila, for sharing your inspiring journey with Kung Fu and how it has helped in your own journey with spiritual practice. And to hear that you've done 4,000 kilometers, it's mind-blowing. Something that
5,000 meter above sea level. Ladakh passes, so it's, even in car, we have oxygen problem. They went by cycling. I can't imagine.
It's very amazing. So, if I may maybe go to Sonam just to continue with our discussion. I know you recently completed Bhutan's historic Gyaltsen program, which for the audience, I'm sure many of you should already know, but just for the discussion today, it's Bhutan's national service initiated by His Majesty the current King of Bhutan, and something that's been very inspiring to see online, all the images and videos. And perhaps if you could share what it has taught you in terms of integrating all that you learned in your school and then bringing it into application in your life.
First of all, I would want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk here. Yes, I have just completed my Gyaltsen journey. It was a wonderful experience. I think if you have like children and that's due to take their Gyaltsen training, I definitely recommend it. It's an amazing experience. You get to interact with youth from Bhutan, you get to interact with youth from abroad, and you just get to have like a really good experience. When we talk about like our theme right now, which is spirituality and inner resilience, I've experienced that like in Gyaltsen, for example. Spirituality, in my opinion, is like, the feelings and thoughts, and then resilience, inner resilience, is the actions you do with those thoughts and stuff. For example, because we live in a world that's, there's so many external things that's going to affect you, and like how Rinpoche and Doctor mentioned, just because like the external thing, you can't blame that and you can't be mad at that. So in Gyaltsen, they really teaches us about inner resilience, because like in Gyaltsen we have the motto "one for all for one." You can't blame someone. You have to have some kind of compassion for them, because whatever the one for all for one motto is basically, if someone from your team, someone from your company ends up making a mistake, they don't get punished individually. You have to experience that all together, since you're all in this together. So in Gyaltsen, it really taught me about resilience and compassion, having that compassion for my fellow company members, fellow Gyaltsups, because at the start, when I would get Tim punishment for something that I haven't even done, I wasn't even in presence of that. When I started, at the start, I was the feelings I had towards it was oh, why should I experience that? Why should I take the punishment for them. But throughout my journey, I've learned that we all make mistakes. We all make similar mistakes. We all experience the same thing. So it's not good to blame them and discourage them, because along my 3-month journey, I have also made multiple mistakes throughout my journey. Giving my fellow girls also punishment on my behalf. So at the end of my journey, I've learned that it's always good to not react. Like, no matter what happens, it's not good to react like negatively, because like at the start they did something, I reacted negatively. I was like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this because I didn't do anything, I was doing the right thing. But at the end of my Gyeongsang journey, I started reacting less. Like whenever something happened, I would think it through. I'll be like, it's okay, it's just a few push-ups or it's just a few rolling here and there, it's okay. It's something to have for them, I think.
So yeah, amazing to hear all the stories. Perhaps I can maybe go back to Rinpoche and ask one basic question then. So when we talk about resilience, at the risk of oversimplifying it, because it's such a multidimensional topic, it could mean different things to different people, but also it has many, meaning to it. It could be mental and psychological resilience, emotional resilience. It could also mean physical resilience, how physically resilient you are. Or it could also mean how socially cohesive we are, that in times of adversity we come together as one to support each other, look out for each other. But behind all that, I feel like one very powerful aspect is the mind. What is that mind that is resilient? What is that mind that is so immaterial, so invisible that we actually experience it, but we don't know where it is? It is somewhere residing in each of us. So if Rinpoche could lead us into understanding what is mind.
Because even Buddha, after meditating for so long, looking for where is my mind, is it in my head, is it in my stomach or my brain? Even Buddha couldn't find it, So Yeva mind, Yeva Dimasi, it is not there. Even Buddha couldn't see it. Mepa mind, Korde Kungishe. Yet you can't say that mind is not there, because mind creates happiness, mind creates suffering, mind creates samsara, nirvana, heaven, hell, everything created by mind. So that's why, mind is something that is actually, there is no way to describe the mind. So from the Buddhist practice, it's not really about, describing the mind. Rather, it is kind of breaking down all the misconceptions we have about the mind, so that we can, understand the naked truth of it. Right? For example, if you're looking at a gold, let's say, 1 kilo of gold, somebody will say, wow, that is so beautiful, that's so expensive. And then somebody will say, no, now the gold market has gone down, it's no longer that expensive. If a kangaroo looks at a gold, he'll say, he has no interest. Dog definitely not. And we human beings, we don't mind wearing 1 kilo of gold, but 1 kilo of stone no one will wear. So like our mind, has put so many, our mind's projections, to break down the projection, and then it's not important to define what is the real value of the gold, because gold is actually, I think I learned today a new word from Dr. Ineffable, which also means undefinable. Because what is gold? It can be composition of a certain mineral. You break down that into, atom, proton, neutron, subatomic level. You may not find a single element called gold existing. So mind is something like that. It is, doesn't it? You can't say it doesn't exist. You can't. It's undefinable. The problem with how our mind works is that even though it's undefinable, we have defined so many things, including our identity. I am so and so. Where is this I? No one has found. No one will ever find. And then on top of the I am a great person. So you guys are nobody. Because I'm great. Now my greatness seems to be going down. Now I need to create a new TikTok. Otherwise, I am going down. So, so this, there's, mind doesn't have, it's undefinable, we define it, and then we add layers and layers of definition about rich and poor, success and failure, beauty and ugly, so many definitions that, at the end of the day, kind of we get lost in our own definition. So the Buddhist practice is about, I think, the uncovering, these definitions and just letting it be, right? So I think my colleague, Venerable Lupin Tingzin, said that meditation is familiarization with the truth. So familiarization with the truth of the mind that is undescribable. So that is, the kind of how we describe it. So if I say I've seen the mind, then I'll be greater than Buddha. Even Buddha couldn't see it. Another thing I wanted to share, because I wanted to share something more practical. When I was very young, my teacher told me, in your life, do you want to enjoy first and suffer later? Or do you want to suffer first and enjoy later? So what I think my guru meant was that, whether it's in a life, you study hard, when you are in the university, you study, you work hard, and then later part of life you can enjoy. Or in the beginning you enjoy a lot, and then later, you may become a homeless person. All right? So similarly in the mental training also is like that. For example, I think there was one topic about resiliency and what practice has really helped. I can say, meditation has helped. It does help, but if I really am honest about it, what really helped him was one time my teacher, we took all of us about, I think, the things in my also with the 750 of us, we went on the Padyatra, which means walking journey, across, I think, about 500 kilometers, 45 days, from Lahore to Ladakh. It was at minus 20 degrees up there. There was, there was one mountain I remember, it's in Ladakh, it's called Kyukpala. And there's a saying that when you look at the top of the mountain, your cap falls off. It's so steep. So when we were climbing up that mountain, there was when you look at the top, it's depressing. How can we, we are not Tenzing Norgay Sherpa. How can ordinary person like us? We didn't go to gym and train for this. We just got out from our bed and came to this Padyatra. So but then the Ladakhi local trekkers, they gave us a tip. He said, when you are climbing this kind of mountain, always look down. Because when you look down, you see how much you have climbed up, then you feel encouraged. So that means that in a life, instead of comparing what you do not have achieved, if you can achieve, think of what you have already achieved, that will encourage you. And the second thing was when you reach the top, I was so excited. I was saying, now we can rest. And they said, tonight camp is 3 mountains away. So now, what did that help me? Is that even though I went through so many difficult times, that difficult time too passed away. That time too is impermanent experience too. Now it's a memory. I can't remember even maybe 20% of that journey. It's like as if all the difficulty we went through. If you want to lose weight, that we lost 10 kilo. I have to do it again. But now it is a memory. And when you come to real life, I saw once we were doing there's a tradition of doing 13 Kora in Swayambhu Stupa, Kora Chusum. So one day we were all doing a Kora, and then, in the beginning there was 1,000 people. And then it started raining heavily in the middle. So after 7 Kora, each Kora is 3 kilometers. So after around midnight, it rained a lot, and the water was coming up to our knees. So it was, at the end I saw from the 1,000 people or so, 700 had disappeared. So, but we continued, because we made a vow to continue. And we knew from Ladakh experience that even this difficult experience of cold and rain will also pass. And tomorrow morning, when we finished our Kora and we were doing dedication, we were happy, we were okay, we accomplished that experience of night was just a memory. And I always tell people, that Some people, they say, don't swim, it is raining. I always say, isn't that the whole point of swimming, is to get your body into the water? Your body is waterproof anyway. So in the morning we were very happy. So that Padayatra taught me a lot. No matter what difficulty I am going through, we are going through, that too will become a memory. And all the good times too will go to memory. So no need to get too attached to great times also.
I think the famous quote that this too shall pass. That's what Rinpoche, I gather from Rinpoche's stories. To look at impermanence in a positive way. Personally, being born in a Buddhist country with that sort of cultural conditioning, sometimes I have a tendency to look at it from a very pessimistic point of view. But I think this is such a rich advice that it's good to look at it that good times, bad times won't last, but we can make the best use of it. Thank you so much for that, Rinpoche. If I may ask Professor Robert to expand on some of the conversations you have had with Rinpoche back in the room in terms of talking about a quality of presence in life that is ineffable, but also that's something very universal. I remember you sharing very deep insights into it.
Big topic. What we were touching on was, I think you're speaking to it now actually, about what is impermanent. How can I segue into this so that it really resonates? It's interesting, we all have thoughts, feelings and emotions, don't we? And they're passing through us all the time like weather. And I think if you practice mindfulness, there are many metaphors that invite you to actually kind of view this inner experience. It's just the weather passing by. And so, but then behind that, there's another question about, well, who's you that's watching it? And so right now, I'd like everybody to close your eyes and then just point to you as a conscious human being. Like, where are you? You can touch yourself or point to it. But I want everybody to close their eyes and do it, and hold that pose, and then ask you all to open your eyes and then look at where everybody's pointing, okay? So please close your eyes and place your hands or point to where are you? Go on, don't be shy. You can point, that's it. I can see about a third of the room up. A lot of you are really shy, I can tell. So there's quite a few. Okay, so hold the pose. Now open your eyes and look around. Don't move your hands. Don't move your hands. Now look around. Where's everybody pointing? To the same place? I have asked literally thousands and thousands of people this question, from every single culture and discipline on this planet. And everybody experiences themselves as being somewhere here. There's only the three responses. The first one is, I'm in here somewhere, just behind my eyes, and I've always been in there. I've never been anywhere else. And others say, I'm kind of here, in this space, and they take in their heart. But others, not so many people kind of go like this. I'm kind of like this. It's like I'm not here, but I'm kind of everywhere. Every human being on this planet experiences themselves here. And they're connected to out there. And we sense that, don't we? We touch it, like there's the five senses. We touch it, and we smell it, and we taste it, and we hear it, and we see it. And but then we make sense of it, don't we? So there's this kind of like this committee in here that's always explaining to us what it is we're sensing. And we make decisions, and we plan, and we describe things as right or wrong, or traffic jams, or whatever they are. And it's amazing. And when I unpack this with people, they talk about, I ask them, who's on the committee? And they say, oh, well, it's my angry boss, or it's my mum or dad, or sometimes God shows up. And it's extraordinary who shows up on the committee, that kind of helps you describe what this beautiful thing is sensing. And so behind these world of words that are, and thoughts and feelings and emotions that are passing through us like weather, the impermanence of it all, is this very stable you that has always been there and always will be. And it's capable of sensing things before you even give it words. And that's the ineffable. It's, we were talking upstairs about a conversation I had with Brian Schmidt, who used to be the VC here. I met with him in the School of Medicine about 2 months after he'd won his Nobel Prize. I'd been working with him. And I was really curious what was going on when you led a Nobel Prize winning team. Anyway, he escorted me into his research, and he described how he set off about 25 years ago now, to try and figure out where we were on the Big Bang. And he had this theory, and he and his team and another team in America had the same theory. Once upon a time, about 13.5 million years ago, there was this firecracker show, and space-time was born, and all of matter kind of went, just exploded into being, and gravity just blew apart and cooled down and started to slow down. And one day, in who knows how many million years in the future, we're going to get sucked all back into nothing. And there's going to be a Gnab Nib, which is Big Bang backwards. And he was trying to figure out where were we on the curve. And so he started photographing these really bright stars, supernovas, some of them millions and millions of years away, and some of them were just closer. And so it took, for the stars that were a long, long way away, he was looking a long way back in time, because it would take millions of years for the light to get here. The stars that were closer, he was looking more recently in time. So he would measure how far they moved apart to try and figure out, well, where were we on the curve? Because if we were slowing down, then it means, we're actually turning around and we're heading toward the Gnab Nib. Anyway, to cut a long story short, after 20 years, they realised that nothing is slowing down. The whole universe is actually speeding up. It's expanding at an increasingly fast rate. So like when bang, it's going whoosh, like it's getting faster and faster. He realised that at that point, that only about 25 to 30% of the universe is made up of material that has gravity. 5% of it is this stuff. The rest of it is dark energy. There's this dark energy being pumped into the universe that's creating space-time as we know it. At the edge of the universe, it's being created, and matter is being born out of it as we're travelling through it. And we are that stardust. And somehow, inside this little clump of stardust is this thing. This beautiful, pulsating, breathing, sentient being that has no words. And all of this is full of the same stuff, born out of the same stuff. That is ineffable. You talk to quantum physicists, you talk to Buddhists, Rinpoche, he's speaking about the same thing, using the same, different words to describe the same thing. Ineffable means it can't be described. So all of us are a product of something that is just unbelievably amazing. The pulse, like your heart is beating right now. You don't have to think about making it beat, do you? When you get up and walk out of the room, you don't have to think where your feet go anymore, like a toddler that's learning to walk. Or you learn Kung Fu, it's that after a while, what your body can do, you don't have to consciously do it. Something happens that moves you. And the amazing thing is that we can perceive that to some degree. We can sense it and respond to it. But I think that the invitation tonight is that we've got to actually sense it all as being alive. None of this is dead, in my view. It is all beautiful, even if it hurts. And we look at other people as though they are a traffic jam in our life. And yet we're all beautiful if we stop and look. In a little while I'd like to tell you another story about what it means to actually consciously choose to see the beauty in another. it's one of the most transformative practices that I've been able to engage in with those I've worked with. But I think the ineffable is what is. It is, and there's natural law and order that gives rise to it, life itself. And we have a choice to actually perceive it.
How you describe each of us as part of Stardust. I think this really speaks to some of the things that we reflect on as universe being in each of us. And we are part of the universe, the interconnection that we see. But in terms of these philosophical understandings, yes, we do intellectualize a lot of these things. What are some of the practical things like we can do it on a day-to-day basis that helps us build, I guess, a much more resilient view towards life, and also a much more compassionate, empathetic approach to each other as human beings? Maybe if I can ask Anila, on your experience working and championing some of the causes that you do in Nepal with your team of nuns.
Definitely through meditation, as I said before, and prayers. The prayers definitely help, because whatever prayers we do in a Buddhist, for example, in Buddhism, from the very beginning, we read refuge. So when we read refuge, we always talk about others, then yourself. May I be able to help others. May I be able, may others be happy, and may others be free from sufferings. So it naturally, the sense of egocentric or the selfishness, the problems, actually all the problems, the sufferings, the disappointment, whatever, all this, it comes because of, me being so real, and then when you have such wish, or I want to, you have a lot of expectations, a lot of hope and fear. So when your hopes are not fulfilled, and then we face challenging. So, so therefore we feel very disappointment, then problems and the stress and anxiety and depression and all this comes. So I think when we do prayers always emphasize on others than you, and also that gives you a sense, time to reflect. There are not only in you suffering. There are so many people out there, much worse than you. And I have a friend in UK, London. She got a very bad throat cancer. So she said, of course, when we diagnose cancer, people feel very fearful. So so disappointed, sad, very very, it's the end of the world almost, isn't it? So but she said when she went to the hospital and met so many other cancer patients, so others are much worse than you, so you feel sense of, oh, I'm okay, you have a time, you have a space to think about others. So that's how then you can become, your hopelessness, your anxiety, anger, just the distraction, all these things can easily sort of erase. So prayers is one thing that we can always do, and of course rather than always when you are facing challenges, rather than just thinking about it, as His Eminence said, that from the positive angle, try to think in a different way, to take it as an opportunity to grow. So prayers, and also these days, because I think many people, especially the youngsters, when they face a lot of problems, they always, browse the, mobile and, follow the social medias and so many things which brings more distraction. So rather you just go, connect yourself with the nature, walk in a park, and give yourself a little bit of space to reflect, and think about it, rather than just, as she said, just, react on it, and then, make the situation worse. So I think the prayers and, other different, like yogas, taking breathings, all these are to, overcome the problems. I think these are the few, kind of solutions, I would say.
When we were walking down here, you started talking about something that King said, that drew a distinction between kinship and us as individuals. And I think, in my view, what you spoke about was kind of caught, having been to Bhutan a few times, you were kind of pointing at this unique gift that I think Bhutan's got to give to the world.
So in Gyeongsang, we were fortunate to have a meeting with His Majesty the King, where he shared a few thoughts about his perspective. And one thing he shared was like working as a team and then individualistically. We also talked about that before. In like Western societies and Western cultures, they're fortunate to be able to work in like an individualistic mindset, because they're compared to Bhutan, they're more powerful in population, strength, money, and so on. But in Bhutan, we are a very, very small country. So in Bhutan, he said something about like bees, like working as in a hive. In Bhutan, we have a very small population, like I mentioned. But if we work as a hive, as a group with similar goals, same structure, we have a similar shared goal that we work towards, it's going to be far more successful than individualistically.
Maybe going back to Rinpoche again, in terms of our relationship with nature, we grew up in a culture that made us aware of our respect to nature as the abode of the guardian deities. Hence, we don't pollute the water, or we don't cut down the trees just mindlessly, versus a worldview where we see nature as something to be extracted, exploited as a resource for your wealth generation. How do we reconcile these two in a modern world and somebody who has that sort of condition? How can we reconnect with nature in a meaningful way? And I'm sure you just shared that experience before. If you could expand on that in terms of developing a much more deeper connection with nature and why taking care of nature is important. It's an obvious question, but many of us fail to take care of our nature as we see with today's challenges.
Earlier, we were talking about Tendil. So Tendil, if you translate into English, it means interdependence. So one thing that is very different from the modern kind of the way of thinking and our traditional way of thinking is modern thinking very much value independence, and the traditional kind of thinking emphasizes that how we are interdependent. Starting with, as you mentioned earlier, that even, unless you are a Guru Padma Sambhava who are born from the lotus, the fact that you are here alive was due to your parents' kindness. The fact that I can speak English is due to my English teacher's kindness. So similarly, the fact that I'm alive right now is because I have a water to drink, I have a food to eat, I have air, that oxygen that is breathable. And so in order for me to be able to exist in this world, to be alive, I'm dependent on so many other things, right? So when but the thing with the modern world is that we are insulated from the nature. So many children, if you ask them, where does the rice come from? Where does water come from? They might say Woolsworth. There's a possibility. Where does the water come from? If you're a little bit more educated, a water department. So like the cloud, the rain, the trees, the snow mountain, the glaciers, climate change, how these are interconnected to our very existence, how our actions can positively take care of the environment or harm the environment, how by taking care of them, our life can be improved individually, how we're interdependent. Right? Similarly, even in a relationship, I understand that when we were young, we want to be independent. Even there was a time when I wanted to be independent too. So we want to be independent, we'll tell our parents, Don't disturb us. I am adult now. Don't call me. Don't disturb me. I can do whatever I want. I don't know, 21 years old or whatever. And it's, feels good also to say that. After I think 4 or 5 days, then you might call your parents and say, why? You don't even care about me. You don't even call me, I feel so alone here, right? But we were the one that, wanted to be independent, right? So I think we need to set a little bit of balance between independence and the fact that we are interdependent in the relationship, interdependent with the water, the animals that live, in the world. Every animal actually plays a role in ecosystem. There is some sort of theory that if all the bees in the world disappeared, every human being will disappear. Because we are all, connected, and every being plays a part, right? So I think if you can understand that, then I think taking care of environment, taking care of your family, being good to each other will come naturally. There is a BBC, I think, I've seen, and that said that loneliness is more dangerous than smoking 30 cigarettes a day. It actually kills you, right? Why do we get lonely? Because we think we don't need anybody, right? Because we don't understand that, the very existence of human life is defined by connections, relationships, all of these are because of interdependence, right? So I think if you can understand interdependence, then and more importantly, more than talking, I think ourselves and our children, our friends, we have to go into the nature. When you are walking, like when we did the Padayatra, and after 2 hours there's a rest, there's a whistle, sing, and everybody will run towards the nearest tree. We are all like, because between the shade below the tree and the sun, there's almost like 4 or 5 degrees of difference in the temperature. Then we understand the sun, the tree, the water, where it comes from. It comes from the nature. And somehow I feel that it's very good to connect with the nature. When you see these huge mountains, your ego looks very small. You as a human being also looks so small. Your problems, your fears and worry. When you understand, right? And if you're so stressed out, and you might go to see some kangaroo, and there can be time when you might even admire the kangaroo. Look at these kangaroos, they don't have to go to job. They don't need car. They don't need to pay loan. I wish I was a kangaroo, right? But then whatever things that we need are created by our human desire, our human need for consumption, We can all be kangaroos if you want.
Yes, I wish we can all sometimes be birds, kangaroos, or animals that look very free out there in the wild without much rules and regulation. They operate on a completely different zone. But thank you so much, Vijay, for reminding us of how important it is to appreciate the interdependence between each of us as human beings, but also our relationship with nature. On that note, with all the material comforts that modern life provides for each of us, yet we experience different kinds of stress on a daily basis, each of us. It's important to reflect on what makes us not resilient as well. It's obviously when we are faced with adversity, stressful situations, or traumatic experiences. And sometimes, as communities, as individuals, it's hard to talk about mental health. It's often looked at as something that should be taken care of individually. But collectively, I feel in different settings, in different societies, there are different ways of approaching mental health and well-being. So if I may bring in Dr. Rao, with your experience working with different communities, of how they deal with stress, or how they deal with their well-being as a community.
Thank you. It's connected with the theme that's actually we've just been speaking about. It's Solomon talked about the conversation with the king and the metaphor of a beehive. And Rinpoche, you're talking about interconnectedness, since you've referred to the same thing. I would observe I mean, I've worked, as I mentioned before, with all cultures, and at the moment still. And, lack of mental well-being, I mean, we've pathologised it, but really it's just a product of some kind of trauma in people's lives, one sort or another. And it could be very varying. It could be in people's history, it could be their upbringing, it could be as a result of being exposed to violence, it could be ill health. And it's our lack of capacity to actually respond to it in a way and cope. And I think, in any culture, the path back to mental well-being is through relationship. It's through kinship. And we've even talked about that before, because that's the field you're in. If you haven't got a loved one, someone who loves you, and you haven't got anything to love yourself, then you are alone. And but that's only a fabrication. All of us have spoken in our own ways about the fact that we are, in different words, we're stardust, or we're a product of our environment, the food and water we drink, which is our external metabolism. We're a product of our interactions with others. So we are actually never ever alone. If we're in this body and we're in this world, we are immersed in the environment. We're already breathing. And our heart is beating. And I think so it's a matter of perception. Like, it means we've got to re-perceive what is going on and not be hooked by the stormy weather that's inside. That's the real trap. We kind of buy into what it is that we're experiencing as though it's real. And as Rinpoche and the others have pointed out over and over, it's impermanent. It passes through. And yet we still struggle with it. So I think the art is to actually not struggle, to feel it already well for what it is, even if it is painful. But then free yourself up enough to actually do something. If you're in this body, you're always doing something, even if you're sitting still. And that's where your freedom is actually to consciously move this wonderful organism in a direction that is important to you. So it's the quality of your presence embodied in the action. So it's not as if they're separate, really. I don't know whether I'm making sense or not. But in terms of perceiving, we've all talked about compassion and empathy and things like that. And this is something that I kind of pointed to before. Many decades ago now, I went to a seminar here at this university, and the psychologist was very interested in what's going on in preschools when preschool children received feedback from the preschool teachers constructively rather than got upset and defensive. And what she observed, and this has been demonstrated over and over, is that for those teachers who naturally acknowledged what they loved about their kids 5 times more than they gave them constructive feedback, the kids they took the feedback. And so to give you an example, the teachers, and this is natural, like if you admire something, you just naturally acknowledge it, don't you? If you look down a mountain and you see a beautiful, you say, wow, that's beautiful. Like it just comes out of you. You don't make it up in here. It's just a natural response, a verbal response to something that this living being experiences as a result of being in kinship with what it is that you're sensing. And so these teachers, when they saw something beautiful, it would just come out of them. Just say, oh, I love the colour you're using. Oh, what a lovely thing you just did for your friend. And it wasn't an outcome, it was always a behaviour. I love the way in which you thanked your friend. Oh, what a lovely way you looked after that plant. And if they did that 5 times to 1, when they said, oh, would you mind taking your shoes to the door? Because you've got mud inside, they go, oh, okay. They'd toddle off and take the shoe to the door. If they weren't acknowledging them 5 to 1, they'd ask the kids to say, well, would you mind taking the shoes? All right. And they'd stomp off to the door. And yet in our daily lives, how often do you acknowledge those around you? the precursor to acknowledgement is actually perceiving something beautiful. And in those situations where it's working well, people actively look for what it is they love about others and the environment, and they overtly acknowledge it. It's very powerful, like very, very powerful. I'll give you another snippet, and I bet you can illustrate this with some parallel stories. I work with a professor in the medical school here. He's over that side of the campus. This must have been 15 years ago, and I was hosting the Senior Leaders Coaching Program. And they went for 8 months, where I worked with these senior leaders in a small team. And this particular chap, he said he had 4 research teams working for him, and the head of one of these research teams was someone that he really locked horns with. They didn't get on. And when he talked to me, he said that if I knew I was going to have a meeting with him the next day, I couldn't sleep. If I saw him coming down a hallway past me, I would duck into a room to avoid passing him. If the phone rang and I knew it was him, my heart rate would go straight up. We've all experienced that, haven't we? So we actually, when we were having a conversation, him and his team, I asked the difference. What's the term between praise and acknowledgement? And they all agreed that praise is loaded. It's transactional. It's like, well, I'll praise you and I want a reward. I want you to behave yourself. Whereas acknowledgement is just spontaneous. It's like, beautiful meal. And so I then turned to this chap and I said, so there is nothing you actually admire about this research team? And he flopped back in his seat and said, oh my God, I'm blind. Anyway, he told me 2 weeks later that he plucked up enough courage to lob into this guy's office and tell him what he genuinely admired. And he said he was really nervous. He went in and this chap turned around and he said, didn't know what to do. And I said, look, I just wanted to share with you what I actually do admire about your work. And I was very honest. Like, you cannot pretend genuine admiration. Otherwise it comes across as praise and the person who's receiving it knows it's loaded. Anyway, he told him and I said, what are you doing? He said he didn't know what to do. He just went really coy and kind of got embarrassed. But the interesting thing was, he said that transformed the relationship. From that time on, things just improved and improved and improved. And 8 months later, when I walked across the campus with a history professor who was on the team with it, said, he's a different man. He's not the man that I've worked with for the last 20 years. That along with other practices that we're looking at today. And so kinship, we're free to love our kin. Whether it's in hug a tree or the person, like, why don't you talk, everyone now, turn to the person next to you and tell them something you admire about them. And let's watch the vibe in this room change. So everybody now take 30 seconds to acknowledge the person next to you in some way, with a word or a hug or something. You do it. You are free. We are all free to love radically. No one is stopping you. And yet we tell ourselves these stupid stories about how we cannot do it. I'm too embarrassed. Just ignore that. As Rinpoche is saying, just show up. You know, that's impermanent. I'm sure all of you had parallels.
Seems there has to be a acknowledgement and not a praise.
Yeah.
No? With the professor, when you were talking about how much love you have for your wife, that was something I really admire. Because to be able to appreciate the person that you are spending your life with, who does so much for you, to be able to have that love, I deeply, appreciate your quality of gratitude, affection. Really admire that. First, I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Yes, actually, when the professor was talking, I was reminded about there's a smoke puja we do sang. So in the sang Tashirekong at the end, there's one sentence. It says that pensunchi gichik Hawaii ni kangwe kar pensunchi gichik mena rongbo inu zawena. That means that if you praise each other, If you talk good about other culture, for example, let's say you sit down with your friend, and if you tell your friend, same like what Professor said, I like the fact that you are so kind, you are so generous, and they will tell you about culture you will like. Your relationship will become deeper and deeper. And it's not that we don't love our partner or friends and family. It's just that, I don't know why, but we human have this kind of habit that the good things we expect them to know. You know that I love you. That is given. I just want to tell you, please don't speak too loud. You have to, like we kind of ignore. We expect other people to read our mind and know the love that we have for them. But the negative thing, we like to verbalize it and make sure that they know it. And that really affects us. So one day I tried with my friend also. We were talking about, this was a little bit of, kind of a created scene. And maybe it's praise. We told each other, okay, let's praise each other, okay? Let's tell each other good God. And after that 5-10 minutes, I think, we were all feeling so good about it. I was even liking my friend more. And so I think that's exactly what it says in the Tashi Rekong. It says, if you praise each other, your relationship even whiter than the snow. If you continue to criticize each other, your relation becomes like a black rock mountain. That's a parallel that I like to share. Yeah.
With many of us, as I mentioned before, we take everything for granted and we forget to appreciate, For example, as Sister Menon said that, as Doctor said, how you appreciate and how the gratitude you have towards your wife and your children. We all can have that in our day-to-day life, what we are, the fact that you can walk, you have 2 legs to walk, the fact you can see people, it's not always, it can change anytime. Tomorrow you may be blind, you cannot see anymore. Tomorrow maybe you just, had, encountered an accident and you can lose your legs. So we have to appreciate what we have, the food to eat. I very often say that, we don't appreciate that we have a breakfast to eat, lunch to eat, and the dinner. There are so many beggars and, people on the street. They have to, think about breakfast, where I will have breakfast, whether someone will give me or not. So we take everything for granted. Therefore, in life, sometimes because so many expectations and hope we live with, therefore we lose the present life what we have now. And of course, coming back to the nature, as Dr. and His Eminence has said, the nature is our survival. Without that, where will we be today? Nature has given us the air we are breathing in and out, the water, for example. If there is, without water, how much water we consume in a day? Without water, where will we be? Yeah, and of course, and the earth, where we are, and the resources that sustain us. So, if we have this sense of, understanding, then somehow life will become beautiful. And of course, in a family, we don't appreciate much, your wife or your children, your parents. As Dr. His Eminence said, without mother, where will we be today? I often say, when we were born, we were just a piece of meat. We were nothing. But because of our mother's love, care, compassion, because of that, we are here today. We say I'm so and so with president, whatever. It's all because of your mother. You are here today alive. You have all these abilities because your mother has given. Otherwise, we are nothing. We will not be able to. We will not be here today. And so I think sense of gratitude and appreciation is so important to have a happy life. To have a kind of a wonderful life. Yes. So just add to that what Dr. has said.
Like the thing you mentioned with praising someone, it really it's just a few words, but it really does make someone's day. Complimenting someone. You could see right now in the audience, just looking at one another, just these few words, really livened up the room. One thing that we should also like know about is like something you mentioned before, like the spirit in the words. I had an experience like that another example from Gilsung. An example in Gilsung, like we do drill training. It's a drill for our parade, and our liver, which is our teacher, she had a very unique way of praising us. She would praise us like, how would I say? Which means like, compared to yesterday, it's alright. Or, at least, like, you're not moving like a cow anymore. So, like, everyone, people, it depends on the person. Everyone has like a different way they praise it, like praise you, compliment you, acknowledge you. So it's really important for us to break down what they're saying, and if what they're saying actually is nice, or like the deeper meaning behind it.
I think we need to not only perceive the beauty in others, but in ourselves. Like this is something we discussed before about self-compassion. The fact that we're not naturally celebrated by those around us leads to a kind of a learned hopelessness, and we feel like we don't matter anymore. Whereas we actually do. But we don't have to necessarily rely on it. It's very, very powerful to acknowledge others. But you can acknowledge yourself in the same way. Every one of you in this room are stunningly beautiful human beings. And there is no doubt about that. There is absolutely no doubt about that. You are capable of the most powerful and loving acts. You've just got to choose to do it. And so you can look at your hands right now and say, thank you, hand. With this I can build things. I can cook a meal. I can give someone a hug. So you can thank your whole body, and this is something I think you could teach us a lot about how we can be grateful for what our body does for us. And we can, but not only that, we have this, we can actually really turn our attention not only to the beauty out there, but in here. And this is not about ego, or it's freedom to actually do the acknowledging. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think every one of you in this room are the best examples. Starting with you, because what a great question.
I agree with the professor that I think I'll probably use a different, term. So we see, in the Buddhist teaching, it is said that, I remember one example Dongsa Khyentse Rinpoche gave in his writing, that if you understand that every being have a Buddha nature, then it is like understanding that you have a mountain full of dirty dishes, but you are 100% confident that after you wash all the dirt away, the beautiful white clean dishes will be there. So I think that's similar to what Professor was saying from Buddhist point of view, that nobody is negative by nature. That's one thing I noticed, importance of the language. In the many of the, I do not know whether any of you know, but I used to read a novel called Agatha Christie. It's a British crime novel. So she always writes that, the human nature is, criminal. Criminal nature of human being, you can't change, you can suppress. But from a Buddha's teaching point of view, that is incorrect. We say nature of every being is beautiful, but the nature has been covered by negative habits, right? Nobody comes out from mother's womb with a Jack Daniel, It's the habit you built, So negative person is someone who has a lot of negative habit, and so that is why I think that fact alone should let us appreciate the beauty beneath all of us. That's our nature. I think that is, very important. And the second thing is, I don't think it's very hard for me to say that I who do I admire? Because I feel that there are many, many beings in the world who are great, who are wonderful, resilient, and I think, we can admire, I think so many we can look forward to in terms of spiritual. If you are Bhutanese, you can look up to His Majesty during the times of COVID, Actually, His Majesty is the only leader I've seen, only world leader I've seen who talks about benefiting every sentient being, Pamasimshin Tamja. I've never seen it. Most of the leaders, they talk about my country, my citizen. But His Majesty is the only one I've seen his talks. He talks about, as a Buddhist king, as a Buddhist country, we want the well-being of every sentient being. That is, I think, itself worth looking up to. And many spiritual masters we have in Bhutan, many great individuals. And more importantly, with every one of us, I think there is a, great love, great compassion that we have not yet awakened or not yet recognized. And I don't think it is necessary to be any of us, take 20% or all, because if you take 20%, you will really get mixed up, You'll be, male, female, monk, professor. I'm sure like all of us may have some good quality, but we have some negative qualities too. Just yesterday I was talking to some of my, my friends, and I was talking about importance of, when you are doing having a meeting, how you should listen to everybody. Everybody has a wisdom. I was saying, for example, I studied Buddhist teaching from age, 6. I went to university, master's degree in Buddhist philosophy from Tango. But if you are stuck with me on island, you are going to go hungry. Because I don't know how to cook at all. And all the philosophy is not going to make us survive. So everybody has certain good qualities, certain negative qualities that they have to overcome. So I think that I don't think we just need to learn from positive things from others' experience, and then kind of apply that in our life. If you can't apply it, just keep it in your mind. There will come a time and situation in life where that wisdom you gained will be of benefit to you. Thank you.
And I also definitely believe that, every one of you, every one of us, you are a gift, yourself, we live in a world, in a compare world where there is a good, bad, some high position, low position, all these are definitions, So for example, if we need everyone, so isn't it? If every one of us become prime ministers and president and officers, who will be cook for us? So we definitely need cook and sweepers, and these all are quality. Everyone has a great quality, whatever you are doing. So we have to appreciate that. I often say, for example, we have to appreciate the farmers, what they are doing. What we are eating today is all because of the farmers' hard work. On the ground, they are the ones who are working, and when they grow the rice, for example, how much effort they have to put. It's just unbelievable. They have to put their whole feet in water all the time. If they don't grow rice and vegetables, we will not be able to buy from supermarket, and we will not be able to eat our, we can't eat money for our survival, isn't it? So we have to appreciate. So everyone is gifted, from the sweepers, from cook, from farmers, from whoever. Everyone has a great ability. So it's a great gifted. So we have to appreciate and not really. How do you say, big and small, all this, someone asked, who is the hero in Tibet, and who is the richest in Tibet, someone asked, and then I think it says that the richest is the the Kharak Gumchung, means he's just a practitioner, says nothing, but he's full of contentment, full of contented. Nothing. He lives in a cave. I don't think he even has a bowl, or stove to cook food. So he said he is the richest man in Tibet. He has nothing actually. So when you are contented, you are the richest. And who is the hero? And then they said hero is the Milarepa, in Tibet. Milarepa is the hero. Yeah, he is the hero. I mean, when we look at him, he's just a yogi. He don't even have a cloth to wear. He lives in mountain without anything. But he is the hero because he realized his mind and he know, all this materialistic thing has, not much of essence, doesn't really. So he has no attachment to anything. So, he said, I think one of masters said, I think the hero is the, Milarepa, the great yogi. So I think this is something we all have to appreciate, who you are and what you are doing is a gifted to yourself.
Like 20% of what's best about me, because obviously I'm not perfect, but I would just wanted to share 2 things that I'm personally trying to work towards. First of all, it's like how I mentioned before, it's like not reacting, and like Rinpoche said, no one like in the world is born evil or like with bad intentions. So one thing that we should personally, for example, I'm starting to learn how to drive. And then one time in Bhutan, when I was learning how to drive, a car came towards me with full beam, and then it kind of shifted to my lane, and then I panicked, and I'm like, oh my god, is he trying to kill me? Of course he's not trying to, but it's like the initial reaction that don't just assume, don't just react, think, oh, maybe he was tired, maybe he was not in the zone. So it's not good not to react. That's one thing that I learned. Another thing I learned is in my Gyaltsum training again. It's like being aware and also grateful. Because I've made comments throughout my training, maybe usually at the start, where I would complain about, obviously the food, the accommodation, everything was good. I'll be like, but I would complain and I'll be like, I want to go back home, I want to eat my mom's cooking, I miss my bed, I miss my room. But then I started talking with the other fellow Gyaltsups there, and I realized that what I'm complaining for it's not actually worth it, because I am getting 3 courses a meal, I'm getting comfortable beds, and then talking to my fellow Gyaltsups, there are girls there that Gyaltsum experience for them was a luxury. For me, it was something less accommodating than my usual stuff that I have at home, but for them it was a big luxury to have 3 courses meals a day, different kinds of variation, dessert on Fridays, a warm bed, warm water, or showers and stuff. So I think another good quality to have is just to be aware of when you're being ungrateful. I'm not saying you guys are being ungrateful, but it's good to be aware and just be grateful for what you have, because there's so many people around the world who's not even getting a little bit of what you have. So that's just a few qualities that I'm trying to work towards.
In fact, Drukpa Nun, we as a Kung Fu Nun, in big community we live in Kathmandu, we have quite a few nunneries in Beg and Ladakh, but Nepal is the one where we it's a kind of a headquarter where 300, 400 of us living together. So as you said, I think Amitabha, our nunnery is and I would say it's an example because of our root guru, His Holiness the Gyalwang Drukpa, has given us the opportunity to do everything, literally from practice level, from the 6 yogas of Naropa, for example, which were never given to the nuns back in Tibet and in Himalayas. So this is our nunnery is the first nunnery where such great masters has given the opportunity to do practice. So from 6 yogas of Naropas and from Kung Fu, from cycling, and within the nunnery we from the administration work, like office work, where everything is running by nuns literally, office work, they have to deal with government, so many paperwork, everything is done. And from driving, we have drivers, we have doctors, we have teachers, We cook by ourselves. We do gardening by ourselves. Everything. We don't really hire cook from outside. So everything is doing literally by nuns. And of course the leading and chanting, like leading a big drupchans, like 10 days of drupchen, January drupchen, Dorje Purva drupchen, which were never ever heard before, I think. So we were so grateful and so fortunate. And for example, like dances, the mask dance, which were never done by a women practitioner, by a nun in history even. So when we first learned the mask dances, wearing those fearful, wrathful masks and dancing, I think even there were a few, criticisms from some masters as well. It's a shocking, how nun can dance. It's only for monks. Monks have been doing it, and now nuns. How come it's kind of a very inauspicious or something? But we believe, and of course His Holiness has always said that, when Buddha was alive, when he gave teaching, he never, there was no discrimination between, men and women, male practitioners and female practitioners. In Heart Sutras, we can see, when he always said that my son and daughters, so therefore Holiness has given us to, grow, the opportunity to grow and do everything by ourselves. So I think our nunnery is something, we do so many kind of extraordinary things, as we said, like Kung Fu, which is kind of a very, very new thing, doing Kung Fu by nuns. But, Kung Fu is something, as I said, it is meant for your mental health, for your physical fitness, as well as for meditation. Meditation means concentration mind. So, when we practice Kung Fu, it also, build our concentration, the mindfulness and concentration. So that, and also like cycling, bicycling by nuns there was so many criticism when we first cycling, across Himalayas for months, They said, oh, how come nuns are wearing the cycling outfit? But come on, we always say, our world is suffering, We always talk about compassion, love, altruistic, taking care of others and others' well-being. But world is suffering. Look at the world now. Every day when we open the news, there are disasters. Flooding. Fire. Earthquake, tsunamis. Cloudburst. So many problems are happening. So we just don't sit and pray. Just pray to everything. May everything be peaceful. Pray, of course, every day we pray, 24/7 we are praying, but at the same time, action is very much needed. We have to act. Therefore, we are cycling. Our mission is to promote the environmental protection, to save nature, save the environment, friendly way of traveling instead of driving, all the time. Why don't we do cycle? Of course, we have been cycling and we have been walking months and months. It's not that we can't afford to, hire a bus or car to go pilgrimage, but we are walking, because to promote, raise awareness to protect our nature and environment, So therefore, we walk and along the way, we always collect the plastic bags, rubbish, like tons of plastic bags we collect, and then we try to educate. Especially, I know in the Western world, people are more aware of environment and all these things. Back in Himalayas, in India and Nepal, we are a little bit backward. Many villages, they don't even know what is plastic bags. And then we just use and we throw. So we have been educating in every villages. Plastic bags are so harmful. If you are using it, please reuse it. Just don't throw away after using once. So if possible, don't use it. These are non-biodegradable items, and if we throw in the water, how many animals are being killed? So we have been educating people. Therefore, we cycle. Cycling is sometimes we like 300 of us cycling together looks kind of fun, but it's really not fun. When we go through it, we have to go through a lot of problems and challenges, especially back in India and Nepal. There is no pedestrian for cyclists, so we have to ride in the middle of the highways, like where there are trucks are coming from 10 directions. There is no rules and regulations. Your life can risk, you can die anytime. But we are hoping that world should be, how do you say, aware of what we are facing. If we want to have a beautiful future, if we want to keep our world in a, how do you say, proper and nice for our next generations, we have to act now. Therefore, we are, compassion in action, walk the talk, instead of just always walking, instead of just talking about environment, all these things, we should act. So that is our mission is to, doing pilgrimages and walking and cycling. And also, of course, in terms of gender equality, we do, as I said, we teach, we have teachers, we have doctors. For example, I was around in 2018 in Ladakh. It was a huge crowd where my Guru, His Holiness, was giving teaching. It was like 40,000 people, so he was giving teaching in the morning, and in the afternoon he said, you go and teach. I was so shocked because I never, done such, in a huge gathering. I've never done. I said, why should I teach? I requested, and he said, oh, whatever I taught, you just revise, So I did, of course, with his, blessings, and of course his eminence and all. Everyone is now supporting us, Therefore, I'm here to talk today in front of all of you in my broken language. So, of course, when in Ladakh, I was revising what Holiness has taught in a huge crowded, So that really, there were so many. I think that was the first time Ladakhis have seen nun teaching. There was the first time so many people were, especially women were emotional. They were crying literally, And there were, after that, a few nuns said, we became nun because we saw you teaching, So that really promote the gender equality. And I believe in our Kung Fu nuns are, so mentally strong. For example, in 2015, when Nepal has hit the 8.8 magnitude earthquake, which was a very big, it was a completely huge disaster. And after the earthquake, people were leaving the country because there is nothing, and many of us are from India. So people were leaving the country, and we were also told we will now leave, because it's so bad now, the full of pollution, houses collapsed, nothing to eat and sort of things. But our nuns, Kung Fu nuns, have said, oh, this is, this is the time we should help others, People are suffering, people are going through so much difficulty, tremendous suffering. We should stay back and help them. Our nuns said, we shouldn't we shouldn't be selfish and saying that, oh, leave the country and go back to our hometown. We should stay back, and then our nuns are literally
stayed in the tent for 2 years.
Yeah, of course, in nunnery, within the nunnery, many, houses are collapsed. We have no house to live. We were living literally in tents. And not only that, we were carrying the food supplies, medical aid, baby food, tents, and whatever things carry on our back, and we walk for weeks, weeks and weeks to those remote areas to give them support, give them food, give them medical aid, whatever things we can do. So I think our nuns are really, mentally and physically strong, and of course we pray, and how do you say, helping beings is, we always talk about, but action, compassion and action. That's how I think now nuns, in a way, we are, people really admire. Drukpa nuns, Kung Fu nuns can do anything. For example, when we cycle, many people in India and Nepal, and they think we have no hair, and we are wearing the cycle outfit. They think, when we come in in a line of 300 people, they think we are men, boys. And then when we talk, then they you are girls. That itself also kind of give them admiration. Nuns can do it, girls can do anything. So anyway, we really hope, with the blessings of great gurus, great masters, and so many supporters, we can, promote gender equality. And then if women are given the opportunities, they have a wonderful gift, and especially the wisdom. We always say, from the spiritual point of view, women are, wisdom-minded, and also very loving orientation, the compassion orientation. So I think we are very fortunate, and thank you very much for asking this question. I wanted to share this, but then it didn't sound because of you. We just got the opportunity to share. Thank you very much.
From what I understand, Doctor wishes to know a little bit more about relative and ultimate truth. So, there is a story that once the king's son and the merchant's son and the beggar's son found a strange fish, and then they were wondering how to kill the fish. So the king's son said that you should hit on the head. His life was on the head. Then the merchant's son said, no, it's in the stomach. And the beggar's son said, no, it's in the tail. So then they were arguing about it, and they said, let's go and ask the wise man who stays on the mountain. And then when the kings and the prince, all of merchant's son, before they could go tonight they went up, and each of them in turn bribed the wise man, and said, tomorrow please make sure you say I am right, that the life also the fish is on the head. You are right. So the wise man accepted, the wisely, I guess, bribe from all of them, and promised them, don't worry, I'll support you. And then he said tomorrow that when they all came, he said that, Prince, you are right. Certain fish, their life was in the head, so you are right. The merchants, and you are right, the life was certain fish is in the stomach. You're also right, In the beggar said, you also a certain fish, their life was in the tail. You are also right. And he got the bribe from all of them. So so relative truth is that when you look at the social media, YouTube, etc. Somebody told me the YouTube social media algorithm is such that when you see something, when you want to check Hindi songs, after some time everything will be shown Hindi. If you watch something that is a right-wing view, it's all right-wing view, left-wing view, whatever, right? So, and when you listen to all of them, I've listened to right-wing, left-wing, just out of curiosity, and when I listen to the left-wing views of the world, they sound so true. When I listen to the other side, they're also so true. So then later, I got confused for a while, I didn't know whether I was left or right, But then when you meditate, when you come back to your mind and when you meditate, little bit of meditation, then you understand that due to certain way of looking, their upbringing, their worldview, this seems right to them. And there are other beings, they have a different way of looking at a life, different situation. So for them, it looks like nobody is ultimately right. They are right from their own perspective. So that is called the relative truth. For example, in the Himalaya, if you are 5'5", you are a tall guy. If you go to, I don't know, maybe Australia or some other Western country, like Denmark, I heard that many of them are 7 feet. So 5'5" is dwarf, right? But it is called relative truth because when you are in the Asian country where 5'5" is tall, you will feel tall. Others will admire you for being tall. And it's not untrue, it's true. And you, because of that, you might get some, social kind of position also because you are tall. But when you go to another country, you will feel short, right? So that is why the relative truth is that, long and short, beauty and ugly is the truth, but is the relative truth, right? You look at the history of the beauty. Definition of beauty has changed so much over the year. You look at the older, it is more like a little bit plump and little bit fat and big thighs is considered beauty. Now it is like a stick-like figure and extreme thin, extreme diet, So it's so it was true at that time, and it might be true in the future too. Look at our parents; they wear all sort of funny fashion clothes, which we now. But at that time, they were the fashionable ones. If they were our clothes, they will be the unfashionable ones. So it's a truth because it's a conditional truth. Right? But because it's conditional, it's a relative truth. That's why it is not ultimately true. So that is why, from the Buddhist perspective, if you apply it in your life, for example, let's say that you get think, let's say you want to buy a house, and you feel that, that if I can buy a house and get this position, I'll be very happy. And you will be happy because that is the relative truth. Compared to not having a house, not having a position, if you have that, it's a great thing. But once you have a house, once you have the relationship you want, once you have the job that you want, you're in the country that you wanted to come to, so how, suddenly after 1-2 months, you don't feel anything great. And maybe you even say, I thought, I'm supposed to be happy now. I'm supposed to feel great. Why is it not? Because your relatively baseline has changed. Now you already have a house. So, having house is no longer a great thing because the baseline has changed. You have a certain amount of money, so, your baseline is from there. So now maybe more money might make you happy, but that amount of money may not make you happy. So that's why we chase on and on. So that is why the ultimate truth is that because it is conditional, it doesn't have a reality. So that is why relative truth, ultimate truth, So that's what Dr. Hawang was talking about, and I didn't want to talk too much about it because, sometimes you get big headache about it, It's a little bit of headache, philosophical things.
We're free to perceive what we want things to mean. If something is meaningful, then it's a value. And so I think it can be there to be discovered. It can be a choice. I think it's a choice more than something to be discovered. We wake up every morning and we're free to actually make the day meaningful. And I think that's setting yourself free to give the gift that you're here to give to those that you're with. And if you spend a day like that, I'm sure at the end of the day you'll discover something about what it means to actually...
For me, I would say what makes my life meaningful, or what makes life meaningful for me is the experiences I have along the way. So when I look back at all of the things that I found meaningful in my life, it was all the memories and experiences I had. So I think you have to live through meaning in your life. I don't know, does that make sense?
It does.
Yes.
Living with love, care, compassion, what you do for, when we came in this world, we came with nothing, and when we die, we go with nothing. What you have now is a bonus. What you have now, appreciate it. Appreciate your family, give them love, give them smile, take care of them, respect your parents, and we never know when we do the last day. So it's very impermanent. So you live your everyday life, whoever you are with, instead of being so grumpy, and so unhappy and disappointed, sad if someone don't talk to someone else. This all at the end of the day we regret, because by nature, as Eminent said, by nature no one want to harm others, no one want to give, being so bad to others. But unfortunately that happens. So instead of that, just live a life with happiness, and then if possible, help others as much as you can. I recall I don't want to anyway because we are running out of time. If you do something for others, there is something that you really rewarding. You feel so satisfied and so happy. It brings happiness in your life if you can help others. So if you manage to do that, I think that is called a meaningful life. Living happily, peacefully, harmoniously, helping others, giving others respect, love, compassion, altruistic. If you manage to do that, I think that is called a meaningful life.
I am very much against multitasking. I've noticed it sounded very cool, the multitasking, but when you really tried it, I realized that I'm all over the place. Neither finishing one thing, So I think that rather than so many multitasking, do one thing at a time. If you are brushing teeth, brush your teeth. If you are speaking to your loved ones, speak to them. Who is with you right now? Love them, be good to them. I think that doing one thing at a time, with presence, with awareness, I think that is something very important and very beneficial for me. I've been trying that. And it's very hard to say that I had a very meaningful 2024 because I drank so much, I ate so much, I partied and I got unconscious. Such a meaningful year. I don't know who will say that. So I do agree with Venerable other things, and I think we find meaning when our love, our action can be of, bring some joy to others, starting with people in our life, to the world. Definitely, I think that's a meaningful way.
It will be unfair if I don't ask some of the questions that have been sent through the QR code here. So question says, as someone starting a new job and facing a lot of change, how can I stay calm and build resilience without getting overwhelmed by stress or self-doubt?
I think what I would recommend is you want to stay calm and resilient. So I think again, so calmness and resilience. So I wouldn't frame calmness up as an emotional experience. No one can control their emotions. Does everyone agree? You cannot. For example, if someone came in here with a gun, was about to shoot them, could you stop being scared? No one can. So a lot of people think you can control your emotions. So I think don't buy into that as being calm. Calm is actually just being still inwardly, while letting the emotions do what they do. So that's a very powerful contemplative practice, I think, a mindfulness practice, am I right? Yeah. And so I think then when it's like being professionally unsure, when you're in a situation where it's like that and you're anxious, just be still inside and let the storm do its thing. And then when you're sure about what you can do, the quality you want to bring to an action, then you just move in that direction. And if it works, then that's the ultimate truth. If it doesn't work, then that's the ultimate truth. But the thing is, you can just remain calm and just keep choosing. And I think every choice needs to be your own unique way of trying to care and act compassionately. And I think if you persist with that, you'll build a massive inner strength.
So we'll go with the last question, and we will get Rinpoche to respond to this question. So the question says, is being individualistic or looking out for myself a bad thing?
I won't say it's a bad thing, but I think that there are certain times when you have to look after yourself, and there are certain times when you have to, think of individual's responsibility to others, be it your wife, your husband, community. So there are some times where you have to meet your individual rights. For example, imagine that a husband and wife are having an argument. If both the husband and the wife exercise their individual rights at the same time, it's a wife's right to shout. It's a democratic right. Nobody can stop your voice. Free speech. And it's a husband's right to put a cotton in the ear, not to listen. No? And that's also his individual right, democratic right. But if both the people exercise their right at the same time, you are going to end up in a court. So there are certain times you have to give up your individual right for the sake of longer view, larger view, knowing that person you love, is going through certain thing. They don't mean everything they say, but there are many good things they have. And for that, keeping the larger picture in the view, you give up your individual right and just listen and let it be. So that's why I think being individualistic is okay, but you have to know also sometimes individual's responsibility to the relation to the community also has to be balanced with individuals' right and need. Otherwise, we all end up lonely, alone, without connection, without friendship. And then, on top of that, when the life's challenges happen, then it's going to be very, very difficult. Like we were having a conversation, living back in Himalaya. We do go through difficulty, but that difficulty is being reduced by our family, friends, love, connections, relationships we have. So that's what we will lose.
I think this has been such a deeply insightful and very enriching conversation, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. So as a parting gift or a thought for each of us to take away from this session today, if I could request each of you to share some practical advice that we could try and incorporate in our daily lives. If I may start with Sonam.
I think that in our lives there's like just a lot of like external things that's gonna come into play. Like your friends might be, you know, like you're fighting with your friends, you're fighting with your husband, your wife. You have a lot of schoolwork, you have trouble at work. Like there's so many like things that you can't control. I think like a really good thing to do in that kind of situation is just maybe like put your thoughts down somewhere. It's something I personally like doing. I like journaling. I think it's a really good way for you to just reflect on what's happening. Because no one's judging you. The book can't judge you. So you just write down whatever you're feeling and then just reflect it. And then maybe like don't like think too much about it and like move on for a few more days. And a few more days later, you come back to that day. You look over it. Maybe you wrote down the argument you had with your wife or something. And then you look back at it and you see that it wasn't really that big of a deal. You could have just said sorry. So I think it's really good to journal and put your feelings down.
And I think much as I just said also, you know, living a happy life, especially, you know, if you are as a Buddhist, you know, instead of, you know, chasing after dreams and so many hopes and expectations, that brings, you know, the sufferings and pain. So of course we have to do this to a certain point to have a, you know, to live a life, but not, you know, always chasing after dreams, and then therefore we get all these problems and, you know, disappointment, and then suicidal cases and everything comes. So instead of, you know, going through that, you know, just reflect on the reality a little bit, you know, because we, as I just said in the beginning, we don't live with the reality. We live with a kind of dreams, and then we are chasing after that, and that brings a lot of sufferings and pain and problems. So instead of that, just, you know, as I said, you know, live as if we are going to die tomorrow, you know. So you appreciate what you have now, appreciate and love, and, you know, be in the present moment, live every day with full of life. So I think that is, you know, at the end of the day, we will be, you know, when we die, when we are at the end of the day, you know, what you have done, something, you know, benefiting others, we feel, we wouldn't be regretting, you know, I've done that, you know, I didn't do much bad things. So therefore we always talk about good karma, you know, helping others, you know, taking good actions, you know, survive, how do you say, doing seva in the communities, in societies, and in your family. And so if you manage to do that, I think you will be, you know, very, you know, good person in this life, and also, you know, you have something to take for the next life and the lives to come.
I think just love the one you're with. Isn't that what the song says? And if you're by yourself, just love yourself with extreme self-care.
Fully agree with all the panelists' wisdom. And if I have to add anything, I myself don't have anything to add, but I'll be a copycat. Sudha Shakini doesn't have copyright issues. When you talk about karma and legend, it sounds very complicated and mysterious, but if you put it in a very simple way, Buddha said that if you want to know your past, look at your present. That means that if you want to know, you know, whether you were good to people in your life, you were tolerant, you had control over your temper, you forgive others for their imperfection and accept your own imperfection. That's why at present you have a good relationship with your family and friends because of the past choices and actions that decisions. If you took care of your health, eat well, whatever, you have a good health right now because of the past. If you study hard, if you work hard, you have a good house, career. If you practice a lot of spirituality, etc., so now you have good mental health. So if you want to know your past, look at your present. If you want to know what's going to happen in the future, no need to ask for witching, no need to ask for astrologer. If you want to know your future, look at what you are doing right now. So your present decision, the choices, etc. will determine your future. So look at your past, not with the guilt, not with the regret, but as a lesson. And know that what you do today, what lesson you take from your past, and what you do today will change your tomorrow. Financially, emotionally, health-wise, spirituality-wise. Anything is possible because everything arises from our choice, decisions. That is basically karma.
Tasla, on that note, I think this has been such an enriching dialogue between all of us, and then to Rinpoche, Anila, to Robert, and to Sonam for sharing such rich insight into each of these themes that are very vast. I'd like to, on behalf of the organizers, thank each of you for your time and presence here and sharing your insights and for gracing this occasion. To Rob, thank you so much for flying all the way from Geelong for this event. He flew from South Australia for this event.
It's enough for all of us.